crisis. That sounds awfully like the measures that we've been calling for. So I don't accept that we haven't put forward constructive alternatives. And even today, when people are struggling with crippling housing costs in many parts of the country, we are putting forward proposals to the government to how you deal with that without making the housing crisis work, cracking down on unfair leasehold charges that are many people in this country are struggling with, and making sure that we cap those costs for people so that they don't have to deal with that as well.
Okay, Lisa, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you for joining us this morning. And Kenyatta and Quentin, we are out of time. You looked like you enjoyed that.
I did, which is lovely. When you mention Peter Mandelson's name in front of a lay politician, it's like mentioning the name of Dr. Frankenstein's monster. He's an old friend of yours, isn't he, Kate Mandelson? I seem to remember.
My husband
Yeah.
Still does.
Very close.
Lisa knows exactly what you're heading at. But Peter Mandelson was a part of a very successful period for the Labour Party.
He was, and there are many big beasts in the Labour movement, and I think it's right that they should give advice, but in the end, Keir has to chart his own course.
Is it such crazy advice though to offer
No, of course not. It's perfectly sensible
come up with
advice.
A policy?
Yeah, good advice. But it's just interesting. I mean, he's such a uniting figure, isn't he, Peter? They're still terrified of him.
Quentin, nice to have you with us.
Now, still to come, we'll have some 90s nostalgia for you as the original Jurassic Park cast reunite for the final installment of the film franchise. We are beside ourselves.
Very excited.
Oh my goodness. And talking dinosaurs, Richard Arnold's been chatting to some of them, and also Jessica Lee's one. He joins us as well shortly.
First night competition time. Andy is live in St Andrews for us this morning. Morning, Mr. B.
I had some golf sticks yesterday. You missed it. I was actually on a golf course. Today, I'm at East Sands Beach. It's an award-winning beach. It probably won the award when it was sunny. It's a little bit drizzly here this morning, but it's sensational views.
Tim Dunstan Bruce has made a film and a one-man show about his life.
The one-man show did come out of lockdown, basically. We actually finished editing the film. And then I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do next? I know this is going to sound really cheesy, but it is about getting knocked down and getting back up again.
This is a good song. It's a good song. And also, as you said at the end, the principle, getting knocked down, get up again. Works every time.
For once, we agree. It's time to get the news, travel and weather where you are, and we'll see you shortly.
Hello, I'm David Allard with the headlines now from South Today. The case against the former Police and Crime Commissioner for Wiltshire, Jonathan Seed, has been dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service. The Conservative candidate had been facing trial after being charged with making a false declaration when he became an election candidate. Mr. Seed won the election but withdrew after a historical driving conviction came to light. The CPS says it's dropped the case due to a lack of evidence. Strike action could shut down all ferry services between Southampton and Cowes on the Isle of Wight later this summer. Union members are being balloted next week on whether to take action after rejecting a 4.5% pay increase. The action would affect both car ferries and the Redjet foot passenger service. The company which ran NHS non-emergency ambulances in Sussex with chaotic consequences has finally been wound up with more than £9.5 million of debts. Copa Former took over transporting patients to and from hospital.
I phoned 999 and I got sectioned.
Terminated after 7 months. The NHS in Sussex took legal action to recover some money from a parent company, but has been left out of pocket, as have private ambulance contractors. Rail accident investigators are studying a near miss at a level crossing in Hampshire. A Great Western driver reported a large group of pedestrians using the crossing at Farnborough North Station in May. He sounded the horn and applied emergency brakes from 70 miles an hour. The track wasn't clear until less than 5 seconds before the train passed. More than 250 life-sized silhouettes made by an Oxfordshire artist are going on display depicting military personnel and civilians killed in the Falklands conflict. The installation in Nottinghamshire coincides with the 40th anniversary of the island's liberation. Dan Barton from the Standing with Giants project says it's important to remember the sacrifice made by others.
I used to watch the conflict unfold on the news, and it just planted a seed in me, and I felt a connection. And since I've been doing these tributes, it just is something I wanted to do, a tribute to those who lost their lives liberating the Falkland Islands, a conflict in our living memory.
Let's see how the weather's shaping up today with Dan.
Hello, good morning. It's been a bright start for most, but the early sunshine will be replaced by cloud building in from the west today, bringing with it some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle at times. Some low cloud, a bit of mistiness possible. Should see one or two breaks in the cloud alone for the old brighter spell, but generally quite grey, overcast. Been quite humid too. Temperatures today between around 17 and 19 degrees. Fairly breezy, particularly around the coast and for the Isle of Wight, and that cloud lingers into tonight. Still a bit of murkiness, some drizzle in the air, and still feeling quite humid. Temperatures holding in the teens for most of tonight. We'll see the cloud breaking up more through tomorrow morning, though. Some bright and sunny spells developing more widely. A dry day for most, just a small chance of an isolated shower turning up, and temperatures away from the coast getting into the low 20s. Have a good day.
That's it from us. Bye for now.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Monchetti.
Headlines today, £100 for a tank of petrol. As prices keep rising, today is the day the cost of filling up a typical family car is expected to reach an unprecedented high.
I suspect it's only going to get worse. So I think the government should look very hard at how they're going to help the ordinary person get by on a week-to-week basis.
The law to stop people under the age of 21 buying cigarettes in England is set to be recommended today.
Help for people on low incomes to get onto the housing ladder, as benefit payments will be included to meet the cost of a mortgage.
Good morning. Driving a wedge through men's golf, the controversial breakaway golf series that offers players huge amounts of money and is funded by Saudi Arabia, tees off in Hertfordshire today.
Good morning. It's a sunny start for some central and eastern areas, but the cloud will build here through the course of the day ahead of a weather front coming into the west, bringing in some rain and the wind screen depression across the west and the south. I have all the details later on in the programme.
Good morning, it's Thursday, the 9th of June. Our main story today, the cost of filling an average family car with petrol is predicted to reach £100 today as fuel prices continue to rise.
The price of unleaded saw its biggest daily increase in 17 years yesterday, largely due to the war in Ukraine. Our business correspondent Ben Boulos has more.
It just doesn't seem to stop going up.
On the road with taxi driver Neil.
179 yesterday, and it's now 191 this morning.
He relies on fuel for his business, but price rises are having a big impact.
Well, we're having to put prices up, and customers don't particularly like it. They like to know their regular journey. They do it regularly. They want to know what the price is, and they're saying, well, the price is going up, and they're saying, well, what's it going to be? But what is it going to be? If fuel continues to increase, it's going to have to go up and up and up.
The average cost for a litre of petrol is now more than £1.80. That means filling the tank of an average family petrol car will set you back more than £99. Experts think it could hit £100 as soon as today. Diesel prices are at a record high too, costing an average £1.86 per litre, or £102 for a full 55-litre tank.
You're going to see £2 become a common sight on lots of forecourts, particularly smaller forecourts and of course on the motorway. This isn't a good time. If oil stays higher, the prices could definitely rise.
At one petrol station in Lincolnshire, the price of unleaded has already reached more than £2 a litre.
It's just costing us more and more to get to work, and all the prices are going up due to the fuel increases. It's disgusting.
I suspect it's only going to get worse. So I think the government should look very hard at how they're going to help the ordinary person get by on a week-to-week basis.
It's ridiculous. It's the polite way I can put it.
It seems expensive, but I don't think about it too much.
What is it? I mean, I drive and I've got to go to work, so there's nothing I can do really.
I'm not even going to be using this because I've gone and bought a push bike to get to work on. So all these things are knock-on effects and stuff like that. But I can't see it being a quick fix, I'm afraid.
Experts say fuel prices were already rising as demand picked up after the pandemic, but the war in Ukraine has made things worse.
You've got to assume that Russian sanctions are going to remain in place, which means that their supply is going to be taken off the market and the high prices will persist until we can find alternative supply. But that could take many years before we find that supply to replace the lost product from Russia. They've just come out of lockdown in Shanghai, so we've got a lot of that demand that has just returned to the market. So that's really what's exacerbated the price rise over the last couple of weeks.
In March, the government cut fuel duty by 5 pence per litre, but continued price hikes mean the impact has long been cancelled out. For now, the verdict is that prices will go up even more before there's any hope they'll come down. Ben Boulos, BBC News.
A major report on smoking is expected to recommend raising the minimum age for the sale of cigarettes in England today. Currently it's set at 18, but could rise to 21.
It's part of a series of measures to help the government achieve its ambition for England to become smoke-free by 2030. Deborah Arnold, Chief Executive of the charity Action on Smoking and Health, told Breakfast that impact changing the legal age will have.
Just by increasing the age of sale, we could reduce the number of 18, 19 and 20-year-olds starting to smoke by about 30%. And this is very much an addiction of youth. The vast majority of smokers start smoking before the age of 21. And if we can stop them starting, that's a major step forward, because for every child who starts smoking, who smokes one cigarette, 2/3 of them will go on to become addicted smokers.
People on lower incomes will be able to use their housing benefit payments to apply for a mortgage when buying a home. This under new plans announced today.
Prime Minister will give details during a major speech in Lancashire as he tries to improve support among his own MPs following Monday's confidence vote.
Our political correspondent Nick Erdley is in Blackpool for us this morning. Nick, it looks absolutely glorious there this morning. Getting people onto the housing ladder. This is part of the agenda today. Top of the agenda?
Yeah, morning, Naga. It's certainly going to be one of the more concrete ideas that the Prime Minister discusses today. So the idea is, at the moment, if you're on housing benefits, you can't use that money that you get from the state to pay for a mortgage. The Prime Minister wants to change that and to allow those benefits you get to be used towards paying off a mortgage. He also wants the money you get through benefits to be included towards your mortgage application, so that potentially you can apply for a bit more if you want to buy a house. Now, I've not got the full details of it at the moment. We have been asking for some more, so we don't know exactly how that's going to work out. For example, at the moment, if you've got £16,000 in the bank for a deposit, you'll get universal credit. So there are some details to be worked out. There's also some details that we're going to be trying to get on the plan to extend the right to buy to people living in housing association properties in England. That's something the Tories have talked about for a few years now, something the Prime Minister is going to revisit again today. But once again, the details are a bit thin at the moment.
It's interesting, isn't it? It takes you back to Margaret Thatcher's right to buy when that was proposed, and it was definitely a driver for her winning an election. And I suppose this is what the Prime Minister is doing now. I mean, you said this is perhaps one of the more concrete offers on the table, but he is thinking of offers and getting them out there because he needs to rally support amongst his MPs now.
Absolutely. That's exactly what today is about. Some people have been calling it an attempt from the Prime Minister to sort of reset his leadership and get back on the front foot, talk about ideas rather than his leadership. I think a big part of what he's going to talk about in the speech today is the other stuff we've been talking about on Breakfast this morning, the cost of living, rising prices, how the government can come up with ideas to try and help people with rising bills. He is going to say today, though, that it won't be easy or quick. And one of the things that's really struck me this week, chatting to cabinet ministers and to Tory MPs, is they think Boris Johnson's big strategy now is to get on with delivering things that he's already promised. So not coming up necessarily with new ideas, not changing his policies, not cutting tax right away like we were talking about yesterday, but instead being better at getting on with the stuff he's already talked about. And given the lack of detail we have this morning, some Conservative MPs might be a bit nervous that Boris Johnson's going to use today's speech to talk about ideas, but not necessarily the delivery of them just yet. We were just chatting a few minutes ago, Naga, about the fact that just up there is the pleasure beach and the massive roller coasters. And it's been a total roller coaster of a week for the Prime Minister so far, with that confidence vote on Monday, dozens of his own MPs rebelling against him. Today, he wants to try and get back on the front foot, but lots of people will be wondering whether he has the concrete ideas to allow the government to do that.
Nick, thanks very much. Nick Irby there for us in Blackpool. Other news to bring you. Ukraine's president says the fate of the east of the country now hinges on one city, Severodonetsk, which is coming under heavy Russian fire.
Ukrainian soldiers are low on equipment and have been pushed to the outskirts of the region. Let's go to our correspondent, Joe Emmett, who's in Kiev for us this morning. Why don't you, Joe, just tell us a little bit more about this place and what the significance of the battle that's going on there is.
So Severodonetsk is the city in the far east of Ukrainian territory, and it's the focal point of Russia's attack. This is where they've been throwing all of their men, their armour, and crucially their artillery, and they are pounding the city. They have been for weeks now. There have been various conflicting reports about who's been on the front foot. At one point, the Russians were thought to take 80% of the city. Then the Ukrainians said they'd launched a counter-offensive and had taken half of it back. But it does seem now that the Russians are slowly edging forward. I thought it was very interesting yesterday that President Zelensky tied the fate of the region to the fate of this one city, because actually there are other defensive positions further back. The governor of the region, Serhiy Haidai, who's often been giving us updates on this, well, he said before that the city of Severodonetsk is important for symbolic reasons, but not strategic reasons. That's because its twin city of Lysychansk is just the other side of the river Siversky Donets, which has proved incredibly costly for the Russians to cross on previous occasions, and it's on a hill. So I thought it was interesting, but as you say, President Zelensky says that the fate of this city will determine the fate of the region.
Joe, thank you very much.
The driver of a car which hit a school tour group in Germany, killing a teacher and injuring 14 students, is thought to have mental health issues. This according to Berlin's Interior Affairs Minister. The 29-year-old suspect was arrested at the scene of the crash, which happened in a popular shopping area in west of Berlin yesterday. A second teacher was also seriously injured.
Those are the main stories. 12 minutes past 7 is the time. June the 9th weather. How's it looking, Carol?
Mixed, Charlie, I would say, because for some of us, we're starting off like this with lovely blue skies, as you can see in Lincolnshire, but for others, it's murky. We've got low cloud, we've got drizzle, hill and coastal mist and fog as well, as you can see in Argyll and Bute. A lot of us, so will see some sunshine first thing, but the cloud's going to build through the day as this weather front in the southwest starts to push in. Now, on its leading edge, we could see some heavier rain in the southwest, also across parts of Wales and Northern Ireland. And ahead of it, the cloud will continue to build, but we'll hang on to some sunshine for a fair part of the day in the east. For northeast England, parts of southern and central Scotland, we've got yesterday's front, and that still is producing a fair bit of cloud, as we saw in Arrochar, and it's also got the odd spot of rain in it, but that will tend to fizzle through the day as our other front continues to advance steadily northwards and eastwards. So we hang on to the sunshine for the longest, further east that you are. The wind's also going to strengthen through the Irish Sea and also the English Channel, with top temperatures today 19 or 20 degrees. Now here's our weather front moving northwards and eastwards, taking its cloud and the rain that's left on it with it. We're quite murky around this as well, particularly so in the southeast. But there'll be some clear skies. It's not going to be a cold night, and the wind will be continuing to strengthen across the northwest. So tomorrow we've got the dregs of that weather front with the cloud and drizzle in the southeast. That clears, but it might come back in later to Kent and Sussex. A lot of dry weather, but some showers in Scotland and Northern Ireland, merging with some thunder and lightning. Once again, windy conditions, not just in Western Scotland, but also in Northern Ireland. So very changeable in the next few days. Now getting Charlie?
Yeah, okay, we'll keep an eye on it, Carol, of course, with you. Thanks very much.
Children in care have reported being groomed, sexually assaulted and given alcohol in homes and schools run by a private company benefiting from public funding.
A BBC News investigation found that Calcott Services for Children had double the profit margin of other big care providers last year. Our special correspondent, Ed Thomas, reports.
For 6 months, we've investigated the true scale of profits being made in the care and education of vulnerable children.
Where's the money going? Not the places it should be. It's immoral.
We've learned of the safeguarding failings.
I ran, grabbed her, we just fell to the ground.
And spoken to whistleblowers who reveal inadequate staffing levels.
At Calcott, it was just failure after failure.
£3 million.
£3 million.
We're BBC journalists, and we've looked at the accounts of Calcott Services for Children, which runs 9 homes and 4 schools.
Turnover, gross profit.
We've learned that some vulnerable children in its care have been failed. So for every £1 of public money that's paid in, the company's making 40p profit.
Yeah.
This is an all-girls home, one of Calcott's. A 17-year-old was groomed by a 28-year-old member of office staff at the company, who was redeployed here during COVID and began working shifts that included staying overnight. In text messages, he groomed her, calling her beautiful and saying he wanted to give her a cuddle and a kiss. Soon, they slept together. She later told a friend she felt used, manipulated, and broken. And Calcott placed another girl here, a 16-year-old victim of sexual exploitation on what's called a deprivation of liberty order, an extreme measure that means she's judged at such risk she could be locked inside for her own welfare. But we've learned the girl was given alcohol by a worker who even took her back to their home. The girl later went missing.
We have this on a regular basis.
We heard further evidence of another young girl of high needs, accepted by Calcott, being failed.
Felt like something was off.
Mo was a behavioural lead at a Calcott school. The girl in crisis here was a high-cost placement. But we've been told that despite multiple warnings by staff about inadequate security, she was able to run away to this bridge.
I ran, grabbed her, we just fell to the ground, and I just held her there for a bit, and she was just sobbing. Some of the kids had no business being in school like that.
The same girl alleged she was raped by a boy after they were able to abscond together from this Calcott.
Calcott, it was just failure after failure.
Oh, I've been outside.
She says there was chronic understaffing, which meant she was often left in charge of a girl whose needs were so significant the local authority were paying for 3 members of staff to care for her in the daytime.
9 times out of 10, she would never be on that 3-to-1 support.
How dangerous was that?
It was extremely dangerous.
Mia also says a 13-year-old boy alleged he was sexually assaulted after being found undressed and without supervision in an older girl's bedroom. An incident we've learned that was then not reported to Ofsted. Have you saw Calcott and the care they gave in the homes you were working in?
Neglectful, disgusting, and I feel, just completely let down of how they treated these children.
A number of pupils have been costed for one-to-one support in the class, and they don't have them.
Maggie McCarthy was a teacher at a Calcott school. While she was there in 2020, the company made 40% profit.
This is money from the public purse that's meant to improve the lives of some of the most vulnerable children in society. Where's the money going? Not the places it should be. It's immoral. The education and futures of these children has been stolen.
Calcott's owners who live here on this luxury estate declined to be interviewed. In a statement, they said, the company is grateful to the BBC for highlighting what it considers to be safeguarding issues. All homes and schools are rated as outstanding or good and have the required number of staff. The company prioritises safeguarding all children in its care. It added, all incidents it is aware of are reported correctly, and profits appear to be high as a result of holding money in accounts during COVID years.
So we've looked at profits.
But the BBC said Calcott made more than 30% profits in 2019, pre-pandemic. The government says it expects all children to provide the right care and protection. Thomas, BBC News.
Well, let's speak now to the Children's Commissioner for England, Dame Rachel de Souza. Very good morning to you. I know you've had a chance to see some of that BBC investigation report. What do you make?
I looked after a family. I looked after about 2 or 3 different families. Yeah.
These are some of the most vulnerable children.
My mum was jealous. My mum was jealous, and she took me to bloody section place, and I was sectioned.
And we should be, these homes, local councils should be caring for them. It's absolutely shocking to hear these reports.
My mum is terrible.
Never mind care. We're meant to be the state is meant to be the parent to these children, and this is just not acceptable.
But a lot of people watching that and will be feeling the same way you do, Dame Rachel de Souza. And yet, when we look at the statement from the company that runs them, they say all our homes and schools are rated as outstanding or good. Now, there is a mechanism for inspecting homes like this through Ofsted. How is it that the BBC can carry out an investigation and hear these stories, and yet the official rating for this organisation is outstanding or good?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point and a very good question. So Ofsted inspect regularly and robustly children's homes, but they are snapshots of a moment in time. They see what they see, they look at the comments, they look at everything when they're there, they talk to children, but they only have that snapshot of that day. And what I want to see is the local authorities that are, that have taken these firms on to run these children's homes, and the DfE been far more intense in their scrutiny, both of the profit making. I want to see those profits going back in to making children's homes better and actually delivering for children. But the so I think that we absolutely need everyone to be acting as the corporate parent and being much more rigorous in terms of these children's homes.
You can hear us okay, I think. Don't worry about the microphone. We can hear you absolutely fine. So it's not a problem this end, as long as you can hear us. Just going back to the point you made a moment ago about this issue of Ofsted and a moment in time and just a snapshot. In a way, when people have just heard those stories of what's going on in one particular care home, those allegations, and then they hear you say that the organisation whose job it is to tell people whether they're safe or good or outstanding, basically, it sounds as if you're saying they can't really do that job because they only have a moment in time. So what is the point of an Ofsted report if it can't detect problems on a scale like this?
They can and do the job, but as I said, it's a snapshot in time. These aren't schools, these are places where our most vulnerable children live, and it needs more than a once a year Ofsted report. What we need are the local authority teams, the social workers, and the whole system to be caring for these children as if they were our own. We need to act as parent, as pushy parent for these children who've had the most difficult start. And that means more than a once a year or regular Ofsted visit. That means daily conversations, actually really understanding what's happening and holding the people who are delivering the service to account. And I mean, from your report, and it's really important that we heard that, they clearly need to do more here. Now, I would say that about 80% of children's home provision is privately run, and many of those are some of our best homes. There are really good private homes, there are really good local authority homes, but there is a very, very small percentage of inadequate and poor schools, and we need poor children's homes, and we need to be acting on those and being vigilant about wherever children are living.
Can you just clarify one thing for me? As I understand it, aside from the BBC investigation, this care home, Calcutta Services for Children, is not under any kind of official investigation by anyone. So given what you've seen and heard this morning and what we've discussed, what would you expect to happen next?
Well, I think it's extremely concerning, and I will be looking into this. I want to see that those safeguarding, first of all, thank you for the brave people coming forward. We want to see that those complaints have been properly made.
Sorry, can you, if I may interrupt you,
dealt
can I
with by the
just
local
interrupt
authority.
you? When you say I'm going to look into this, I mean, what does that mean? We've just heard allegations of a number of allegations about assaults, about improper behaviour, and you're saying it's going to be looked into. Well, the BBC has looked into it, so officially, what should happen next?
And
Rachel
thank you.
White.
I am going to check that the people
Rachel
who are
White,
responsible for dealing with this, the local authority,
she's
and
selling
local
loads of
justice
weed.
are looking at this and are acting properly. This is, we need to see action. Any
My
failure
dad
of this
got married to
has
someone
failed too many
and had a
people's
kid,
children's
and it's called
lives,
Rachel
and we
White.
need to see
Rachel
action
White, she
now.
hit her children. You know, I see her do that when I was over there, buying some weed off her.
Okay, and I appreciate your dealing with this as it comes in. When you say you need to see action, what are the?
This is horrible.
When you see allegations like this, and you know how the system works, what are the options available to the authorities when they are made aware of allegations that, for whatever reason, they just didn't know about before? And you could apply this to any situation. What are the options officially available in terms of trying to do something?
Look, frankly, the local authority, the council that actually has, made a contract with a private firm, could terminate it if it's not
Half an hour, and the music can be banging. Yeah, 8 o'clock.
And that's, we're in these serious situations, we need to really make sure this is properly looked into by the authorities and the proper action taken if standards aren't where they should be. I just feel, we've got to remember the central of children and children's lives, and they're not going to get this chance again. And to thrive, their thriving and success is what's really important. And what I've heard today is really concerning.
Dame Rachel de Souza, thank you very much for your time this morning. Dame Rachel de Souza is the Children's Commissioner for England.
It's 26 minutes past 7. Good morning to you. Find out what's
Good
happening
morning.
in the UK. About 3.5 minutes, we'll be back with you.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh yeah, I bought some sound effects. I'm going to try and use it if I can. See how we go.
Jonathan Seed has been dropped by the Crown Prosecution Service. The Conservative candidate had been facing trial after being charged with making a false declaration when he became an elected candidate. Mr. Seed won the election, then withdrew after a historical driving conviction came to light. The CPS says it's dropped the case due to a lack of evidence. The company, which ran NHS non-emergency ambulances in Sussex with chaotic consequences, has finally been wound up with more than £9.5 million in debts. Co-Performer took over transporting patients to and from hospital appointments in 2016, but the contract was terminated 7 months later. The NHS in Sussex took legal action to recover some money from a parent company, but has been left out of pocket, as have some private ambulance contractors. 2 hospitals.
Yeah, I'm getting a live streaming sound card, USB, audio interface, mixer, 18 effects, 6 sound modules new.
Just before Christmas, when he was hit by a car crossing a junction. Nick Hancock is a surgeon at Southampton General. He broke both his wrists in a collision in April. Both of the drivers claim they didn't see either cyclist before the impact.
I thought, oh, he's definitely clocked us because this is sort of slowing down. And then as we got to the junction, they turned in, and so there was no time to brake.
If you're riding a bike, you should have a helmet on. There is absolutely no doubt about it. That helmet saved my life.
Staff at a Dorset museum say they believe a D-Day ration pack in their collection is the only complete example of its kind in the world. The pack in the Keep Military Museum in Dorchester contains chocolate, biscuits, tea, and 4 sheets of toilet paper. It was originally thought to date from the 50s, but an X-ray revealed it was an assault ration pack designed for British and Commonwealth soldiers within the first 24 hours of the liberation of Europe. I wonder what the chocolate tastes like now. On to the weather now. Here's Dan.
Oh, good morning. It's been a bright start for most, but the early sunshine will be replaced by cloud building in from the west today, bringing with it some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle at times. Some low cloud and mistiness possible. Should see one or two breaks in the cloud alone for the odd brighter spell, but generally quite grey, overcast. Feeling quite humid too. Temperatures today between around 17 and 19 degrees. Fairly breezy, particularly around the coast and for the Isle of Wight, and that cloud lingers into tonight. Still a bit of murkiness, some drizzle in the air, and still feeling quite humid. Temperatures holding in the teens for most tonight. We'll see the cloud breaking up more through tomorrow morning, though. Some bright and sunny spells developing more widely. A dry day for most, just a small chance of an isolated shower turning up, and temperatures away from the coast getting into the low 20s. Have a good day.
And that is it from us. So it's back to Naga and Charlie. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.
Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Monchetti.
Now, last November, the worst storm in a decade, Storm Arwen, brought severe weather to the UK and left thousands of households without power for more than a week.
The energy regulator, Ofgem, has now published its report, which looks into why network providers took so long to restore power to customers. It says the service was unacceptable. John Donnison has more.
For several days last November, much of the UK was battered by Storm Arwen. Winds of up to 100 miles an hour caused widespread damage. The force of the storm took many by surprise. Millions of trees were destroyed, in many cases bringing down power lines too. And the government says around 1 million households experienced power cuts, with the northeast of England, Scotland and Wales coming off worst. Over 3,000 homes didn't get the electricity back for well over a week, having to suffer as further storms hit the country. Amid freezing temperatures, families were forced to huddle round fires, with the vulnerable doing what they could to keep warm. Today's Ofgem report looks at why it took so long for the electricity firms to restore power to some homes, whether a lack of investment in infrastructure was a factor, and whether people have been speedily and fairly compensated. An interim report from the government's Department for Business in February has already found the response by some electricity companies was unacceptable. John Donnison, BBC News.
Let's talk to the Chief Executive of Ofgem, Jonathan Brearley. Jonathan Brearley, good morning to you. Thanks for your time with us. So there was an interim report. What in this report is has added to the information that you knew?
Well, what we've got in this report is a very, very clear action plan for those companies. Now, without a doubt, Storm Arwen was a serious storm. It was something that was going to cause damage. And I do want to say something that loads of customers have said to me, which is the engineers who were working day and night to get people back on power were hugely appreciated. But the fact of the matter is the network companies were not ready for this. There are lots of things that they need to do to improve the resilience of the network, to make sure that people are restored quickly, and to make sure principally that people are even communicated to around what's going to happen to them. So this report sets out clear actions with clear deadlines and says to the network companies, you need to pay back £44 million to those customers and the communities that suffered as a result of those actions. Now, my message is really simple to the network companies and to the entire industry. Customers are suffering right now. You need to look after their interests, and for the networks, that means doing better.
Whose job is it to make sure that the companies are attested to see if their plans, in case of emergency like Storm Arwen, are sufficient?
Well, the companies are responsible for making sure the rules we set are implemented. So the companies are responsible for what happens to their customers. Our job is to set the rules and to respond when we think those rules and the expectations that we have been broken. And that's what we're doing today. But what we're saying to the companies now is because of what's happened, we're going to have to go further. You are going to have to bring your winter plans to us. We will assess them in September to make sure that you're ready. Now, I can't guarantee there won't be another event like Storm Arwen, but the industry needs to step up, otherwise there'll be further action against them.
If there is another event like Storm Arwen before, say, September, when you check whether these plans are in place, do you foresee that, for example, I think it was nearly 3 out of 10 customers, when they were told when their energy, their electricity would be restored, for example, that wasn't within 24 hours. Do you think the same could happen again?
So one of the worst aspects of this for me was when I talked to a customer who'd been off for 5 or 6 days. And as you say, Nigel, she was saying to me, look, I've had texts every day telling me my power is coming on tomorrow. So I haven't had any chance to plan or do anything differently. That is genuinely unacceptable and something that we should not see again. Now, already the network companies have changed that. When we saw further events through winter, remember, Storm Arwen was only one of a number of events that we had. The network companies had already improved their communications. So I don't expect to see that happening again in any event. But look, in a sense, we set the rules. The companies are responsible for delivering. But if that sort of thing happens again, we'll be back here and they'll be paying more money back to customers and they'll have a list of even more stringent requirements.
Will they get their money on time, customers? Because so many haven't.
So part of what a report says is the companies were not good enough at making sure people got their compensation. So yes, they should get that back in a much faster way next time.
When you say to these companies it's not good enough, how quickly should they respond? It's all very well you saying this isn't good enough. The interim report said it wasn't good enough. But the message I'm getting from you is that if there is another major event, there are no guarantees that the right systems are in place to make sure that customers don't struggle and suffer again.
Well, what we set out today is an action plan with very, very clear deadlines. So we're talking about action by September to make sure that we don't face the sort of events that we faced last winter and the response we faced last winter. So we're really clear and we've got very clear action for those companies. And by the way, they are already changing. So I know that the CEOs of those companies deeply regret some of the things that have happened. They are working already to change their systems, but we will be on their back to make sure they do that quickly and they look after customers' interests. As I say, this is a very, very tough time for customers in a number of different ways. And every company needs to step up. And for the network companies, that doesn't mean starting change now. That means carrying on the changes they've already made, but making sure that customers are better looked after. Our job is to do that, and that's what we're doing today.
We've got you, the boss of Ofgem, on. We need to talk about the cost of living. The energy price cap rose in April to 1,971. Can you give us a figure for October? It's been mooted around 2,800. Do you have an update on that?
Yes, look, we laid this out for Parliament a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, our latest analysis does suggest that the price cap will go up again to £2,800 from 2,100. And that is an enormous rise over the last 18 months, almost £1,800 in total. Now, I talk to customers a great deal, and I know the huge impact this is having on people's lives. But what we are doing is making sure, we can't offset the cost of gas, but we're making sure that a fair price is paid for energy and no more than that.
There's also talk about, rather than this being a half-yearly announcement, that the cap will be announced every quarter. Is that happening? And if so, with your forecasts, how many more quarters of rises will we see?
So we're not making any change until October. So October will be the next time the price cap rises. But after that, we do expect the price cap to rise every 3 months. Now, really importantly for customers, yes, that does mean if prices continue to go up, then the price cap will change to adapt to that. But equally, if costs come down, then the price cap will come down equally quickly. And again, when I talk to customers, many of them say the thing they fear most is almost building up a debt and having to pay for things later. So in this way, we make sure that the price stays with the market and that fair price is paid. Now, it's a tough set of circumstances out there. It's a really, really difficult time for many people. And as I say, I talk to many people out there about the circumstances they're in. But we are doing our job in making sure that people pay fair prices for their energy and to make sure that the market works for its customers.
Do your forecasts suggest that on a quarterly basis in the future, say the next year, that energy prices will continue to rise?
Honestly, it's really, really hard to tell.
Okay.
If you think about the global situation, you think about the fact that these costs really are being driven by a tight gas market and, frankly, Russia, who is clearly limiting supply, then it's very hard to tell whether we'll be in a situation where prices go up or indeed come down dramatically. And that's just genuinely the uncertainty the country faces at the moment.
One certainty that is out there is the fact that many people, particularly on prepayment meters, pay a standing charge. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a cost that is applied automatically before any gas or electricity is used. And there have been reports of people who have disconnected their homes from gas and electricity because they are so concerned this standing charge could be up to £1 a day. Why isn't that a simple thing that you can get rid of?
Well, one thing that we are doing is looking at the way that standing charge is made up, and we are looking at components of it to see potentially if it can be reduced. The reason it's there is it pays for the network infrastructure that supports us and gets energy to our home. And look, Naga, these things aren't simple because we take the cost away from there, we put it onto the unit costs. I talk to families, for example, with disabled children who have huge energy bills. And if we put that onto the volume charge, so the price per unit, their energy bills go up. What we're trying to do is get the balance right here for customers, but these circumstances are extreme. They're extremely difficult for households to manage. What we need to do is make sure people pay as fair a price as we can for their energy and make sure ultimately that we manage through this as best we can.
It's not a fair system though, is it? Because people are being forced to disconnect their homes from energy.
Well, that's why we're looking again at how the
So
standing charge is made up.
when will that change?
So look, it will be a change that will come through in the coming months. So it's very hard to give a specific time, but we're hoping it will be ready for this winter.
Jonathan Brearley, Chief Executive of Ofgem, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time now is 7:40. Mike's with us on the sofa now. So, Mike, in sport, and you'll know this from many big sporting occasions you've been at, you have sports stars doing a press conference, don't you? And sometimes they can be jolly and they can be interesting and it can be about the sport itself.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be very uncomfortable. And golf sports reporters, that we have a moment in time which is very
We're going to
uncomfortable.
see an example of just how prickly this new golf series is proving to be for the players, the divide it's causing in the sport. It threatens to tear the sport apart because it threatens the participation going forward in the PGA Tours, the Ryder Cup, of some big names who have signed up to this breakaway, controversial Live Golf Series, 8 tournaments around the world, supposedly to spread the word of golf, spread the sport to new audiences. But is it about the money? Money over morals, money talks, because this is an idea for you. Phil Mickelson, one of the biggest names in the sport, it's estimated so far his PGA Tour earnings have been around £95 million. A lot of money. Just for appearing in this Live Golf Series, he'll get £160 million. That's before he even takes part.
And the row is all about where the money is coming from.
That is the point. Yeah, absolutely right. It's Saudi Arabia funded. And of course, there's a lot of issues there, a lot of questions over Saudi Arabia's human rights record. Yeah. So that's the scene. Good morning. On the rolling greens of the Centurion Club in Hertfordshire, then, the most controversial and most lucrative tournament in golf history will get underway today at 2 o'clock, to be precise, this afternoon. So major champions like Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, and Dustin Johnson are getting paid mind-boggling amounts just to appear, and they'll play for the £3.2 million top prize. And even coming last year, will net you nearly £100,000. But competitors have faced questions about the ethics of the series, funded by Saudi Arabian money, with the country's human rights record called into question.
People may not agree with my decision to play Live Golf, my timing. I understand that. I mean, I empathize with that, but this is what I think is the right decision for me, Amy, the people I care about at this time.
Now, let's have a look at that press conference that Charlie was talking about. The reason, I guess, that it's proving so decisive is this, because the American-based PGA Tour have said playing in this series, this new series, could see golfers ruled out of future events and the Ryder Cup. Most of the golfers then have been grilled about their participation, accused of taking money over morals. And this exchange between the Mirror's Neil McLennan and British golfers Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood, who are taking part, shows us just how thorny this issue is.
If Vladimir Putin had a tournament, would you play there?
I'm not even going to comment on speculation.
Just in a generality, is there any way you wouldn't play on a moral basis? If the money was right, is there any way you wouldn't play?
I don't need to answer that question.
Sorry?
I don't need to answer that question.
Lee, you want to answer it? Would you have played in apartheid South Africa, for example?
Well, you're just asking us to answer a hypothetical question there, which...
Well, they're moral questions, aren't they?
Answer a question on that.
Wow. It is getting gathering momentum, rather, though. There are nearly 50 golfers taking part this week, with more top names expected to join the series. But Rory McIlroy, well, he won't be one of them. He's chosen to stay on the PGA Tour and insists he's motivated by more than money.
I want to play on the PGA Tour against the best players in the world. And, I think for me, I was speaking to a few people yesterday, and one of the comments was any decision that you make in your life that's purely for money usually doesn't end up going the right way.
Next to the international football, and after the euphoria of reaching the World Cup on Sunday, it's understandable perhaps that Wales, well, they were brought down to earth with a bump in the Nations League last night. They looked like they'd snatched a famous draw against the Netherlands. This was in stoppage time. An equaliser from Reece Norrington Davis. Only for the Dutch then to go up, straight up the other end and score again. Ernest Bout-Ekhoff heading home the winner, 2-1. And a week on from losing their World Cup playoff match against Ukraine, Scotland got back to winning ways. They beat Armenia 2-0. Anthony Ralston with Scotland. Great news for British tennis, because after pulling out of her first grass court tournament match of the season with a side injury, Emma Raducanu is expected to be fit for Wimbledon, which starts at the end of this month. While on the court, there were no problems for Dan Evans in the men's draw in Nottingham. He's eased into the quarterfinals after a straight sets win against the Italian Thomas Fabiano. Evans is the top seed. And the British number 3, Harriet Dart, will have to come back today to finish her match against Camilla Giorgi. She just levelled the match before rain prevented the deciding set. And Katie Bolter is also in action today, while Andy Murray plays this afternoon in Stuttgart. Great news that Emma Raducanu will be fit now. And in fact, she'll play the week after next at Eastbourne. That's the prediction.
That's good. Would you like to repeat your little joke you made a moment ago on your first sight of Carol this morning?
Well, I just say I always get misty-eyed when I see Carol. There we are, because it was rather misty behind her.
There you go.
In a nice way.
Yes.
You know.
Is there a negative way of being misty-eyed about Carol?
No.
It's all nice.
I am here, chaps.
Oh, wait till you get you,
talking
Carol.
about
Oh, there she is. I see her.
Thank you.
Now's a good time, Carol. Now's a good time, Carol.
Thank you, Naga, and thank you, Mike. Big love right back. Good morning, everybody. It is
Oh,
quite a
good
misty start for some of
morning.
us. It's a murky one as well. We've got some
Murky.
rain pushing in from the
Oh.
southwest, moving northeastwards, but not everywhere seeing this. Some of us are starting off on a sunny note. We've got weather fronts coming in from the west today, all connected to this area of low pressure, which is drifting northeastwards. And you can see from the isobars on it, it's going to be windy for the next few days. The wind not easing
Is it?
northwest
Oh,
until
really?
Sunday. Now, we also have all this cloud across Scotland and parts of northern England, producing some spots of rain. That's yesterday's weather front. Today's weather front coming in from the southwest, bringing in some rain. Could be heavy in the southwest Wales and Northern Ireland on its leading edge, but generally it's going to be light as it pushes northeastwards, and ahead of it, the cloud will continue to build. So the brightest skies will be the further east that you are. They went picking up too today across the Irish Sea and also the English Channel, with temperatures ranging from 12 to about 22 degrees. Pollen levels today worth noting, if you're in eastern or southeastern England, they're high or very high. And in the next few days across England and Wales, they're going to be high or very high across the board. Scotland and Northern Ireland, you'll hang to low or moderate levels of pollen. Now, through this evening and overnight, here is our weather front moving northwards and eastwards. There's a lot of cloud, murk, hill and mist and coastal fog associated with that. And that will be lingering in the southeast by the time we get to the morning. North of that, some clear skies, not a cold night, but the wind continuing to strengthen across the far northwest of Scotland. Now, tomorrow the wind will be very gusty, touching gale force at times across the far northwest, but tomorrow it's going to be a blustery day wherever you are. The dregs of our weather front move away, but it might just come back later in the day and clip parts of Kent and Sussex, bringing in more cloud. Temperatures 15 to about 23 degrees, possibly 24 in Lincolnshire and also East Anglia, depending on how much cloud cover there is. Then on Saturday, it still is going to be windy across Northern Ireland and also Western Scotland. Here too, we'll have some showers merging to give some longer spells of rain. Some of those will be thundery as well. But as we come further south, we've got a ridge of high pressure trying to build in. So that's going to settle things down. Now, having said that, we could still catch the odd shower, but temperatures 14 to about 22 degrees. And then as we move on into Sunday, eventually that area of low pressure moves away. High pressure tries to build in a bit more, and we've got weather fronts trying to topple around the top of it. So that means on Sunday, for many of us, it will be dry, but in the far north of the country, it's not going to be as windy, but we might just see some spots of rain now and again. Now getting Charlie.
Different all over the country, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very changeable, very varied at the moment. But, you know, we need the rain and we like the sun. Thanks, Carol. Stay late. You're welcome.
Weather different in different places. Extraordinary news this morning. 7:49 at the time. So he's sung for the Queen, the Pope, and a number of former presidents. But opera singer Russell Watson says surviving 2 brain tumours is his greatest achievement.
Understandable. And next week, he is performing a charity concert of his greatest hits. He wants to raise money for the Teenage Cancer Trust. Take a look at what we can expect.
Though you're
Not here with me, a part of you will always be. In your life, I see you smile. Challenge to glory. He knows he can turn the key.
So that was Russell doing his thing. Morning, Russell.
Good morning.
Doing your thing very well.
Yeah, very nice, very nice too. But there is a big event coming up, and it's such an important. The Teenage Cancer Trust. Let's introduce you to everyone this morning. Hannah Simpson is from the Teenage Cancer Trust. Morning, Hannah.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Delighted to be here this morning.
And you could probably help us with the introductions today, because we also have Hamish Graham and his mum Sarah, who are speaking to us from Greater Manchester. Morning, guys. And who's introduced us? Hello. Who is in the middle there? Tell us who's in the middle.
Dexter. Dexter the dog.
This is Dexter the dog. And the reason, Hannah, you know these guys is because you were with Hamish in his difficult times early in his diagnosis. So you want to tell us a little bit about what happened?
Absolutely. I've known Hamish for a very long time. So I first met Hamish when he was 5 years old, when he had his first brain tumour and he had treatment at Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. And then because Hamish loves us so much, he couldn't stay away, and he came back to us at the Christie a couple of years ago when he got a diagnosis of leukemia. And so I've been looking after Hamish as the Teenage Cancer Trust nurse at the Christie since then.
When you say looking after, it's much more than just looking after.
We adore Hamish.
Okay, please, because I don't think we're going to get from Hannah anything but modesty, are we?
These people are amazing, and that's why I've got on board with this Teenage Cancer Trust. What they do is incredible. There's 57 units across the whole of the United Kingdom, and what they do is they support young people with cancer. They have units where all the cancer patients, young people, can get together and speak to people that also are going through similar situations themselves, which I think is invaluable to them, where they can sit, they can discuss how they're feeling, what they're going through, maybe the chemotherapy that they're having. It really is. What you guys do is incredible. There's no government funding. They raise all the money themselves, which is also incredible. Had a very, very difficult time, obviously, during COVID, where they've not been able to raise the necessary funds that they need, or as much as they would have liked. And that's why we're here.
Well, I noticed, Hamish, you're listening very closely to what's being said here. You know Hannah very well. Tell us, from your point of view, what difference did Hannah make to you?
She made me feel at home even though I wasn't at home. She's a bit like a second mum to me.
Oh, your face, Hannah, when you said second mum.
Whoa! We love Hamish.
And that's what it's all about, is this specific care for young cancer patients who are dealing with, and not just that, but also, as you can see there, mum. People don't often recognise the fact that if you're a parent and there's something wrong, they look at somebody with cancer and they think they've got cancer, but what they don't see is the ramifications of everything that's going on around that. The family, the mum, dad, having to deal with a young person with cancer is incredibly difficult, and they also need support. And that's another thing the Teenage Cancer Trust does, is they give support to the families of the young people that are going through this terrible situation.
Well, Sarah, tell me, because I know one of the things Hannah does, the simplest things almost, isn't it? It's like a text message in the evening, just to kind of, so you can sleep just a little easier. What kind of difference did that make?
Well, it's text messages, morning, noon and night, whenever we needed her. She was just amazing. She was sort of the link between me and Hamish, because a lot of the time he was in hospital, he was on his own because of the pandemic with no visitors. And as a parent, that is absolutely terrifying. But Hannah was there whenever I needed her. Even now, it's like no question is a daft question. And I'd say Hannah's the second one to me as well. She helped me keep my sanity all the way through that. And it's only through Hannah that I've been allowed to take care of Hamish, because Hannah took care of the whole family, really, hasn't she?
And Hamish, it must have been important to you as well to know that Mum wasn't too worried.
Yeah, it kind of helped.
And Hamish, one of the things I know that we've got to be positive about, because Russell's working on this at the Teenage Cancer Trust, you know, this concert, you're going. How are you feeling about that?
Sorry, what did you
How
say?
are you feeling about that? What are you looking forward to at the concert?
Yeah, excited.
We'll be talking about football most of the time.
Well, I have noticed Hamish's shirt. This is something you both have in common, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. Manchester United. Yeah. It's not so good at the moment, is it, Hamish?
It could now.
No. Yes. We'll talk about it more when I see you. Yeah. Yeah, we've got a lot in common with regards to Manchester United. I think we're both feeling the pain at the moment.
Hamish, can I ask you a question? Have you ever heard Russell sing?
Only on that video.
Would you like to hear Russell sing now?
Yeah.
You do this all the time.
No, I
And
just,
you know
it
what?
only seems fair, doesn't it, Russell?
Everyone who sings
As long as Russell's
hates
singing
coming
and
on
not
this
me.
sofa because you do this.
Russell.
How would you like to join in?
Where's
I'm
Russell, my
not
brother?
exclusive about this. You could. Have we got a duet going on?
He
here?
won't
You
sing.
seem like you're limbering up. You're ready. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
You can say no if you want. If you want to hold it for the
I'm gonna
event,
go,
it's fine.
bella cosa, una giornata e sole, un'aria serena dopo una tempesta, l'aria fresca, fa girare una festa, che bella cosa, una giornata e sole, tu sole, più grande, oh sole mio, sta in fronte a te, no sole mio, sta in fronte a te, sta in fronte a te. You asked.
Oh my word! Thank you. Can I just say, Russell? I mean, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
But sitting next to you and looking at you, you've sung at a lot of special events.
Yeah.
The passion that you have, you know, for young people like Hamish, and you've been through this yourself. It's tangible. I could breathe. Do you know what I mean? I could feel it.
Yeah.
I've been through some difficult times. I've had health issues. It wasn't cancer, thankfully. It was a benign tumour, but it was a very aggressive, fast-growing one. It hemorrhaged and nearly put the lights out on me for good. But yeah, I have a zest for life, and I also have a zest for helping other human beings who are going through very, very difficult times in their life. That's why I got on board with teenage cancer, because, you know, in some respects, I can relate to that feeling. I think more from my perspective, because it wasn't cancer, as I say, but I can relate to that sense of how people are feeling, because when I was going through it, all I could think about was my kids.
Yeah.
Because they were very young back then. They were babies, basically. And all I could think about was them and how they would manage if I wasn't to make it, if something, you know, did happen to me, how they would feel. And that was one of the things that kind of always resonated with me. So when I see Hamish and his mum, that really resonates very, very heavily with me, because I know that Hamish is going through a very, very difficult time himself, but I also know that mum is as well, and she's being incredibly strong. And that's why I think this charity is so very, very important to a lot of young people.
Very, very well said. I mean, Sarah, you're nodding. Hamish, I saw you listening as well. I mean, how are you both? You're looking forward to the concert?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. I think it's amazing what Russell's doing, and like he says, they really do need the funds, and we're just looking forward to a great evening.
Hannah, has your hearing come back yet?
Just about.
Yeah. I mean, it was loud here, and I did think, oh, we're hearing it.
You do amazing work. I mean, even just this brief glimpse, people will be thinking, people like you, are you back on awards today?
I'll be back about 9 o'clock at the Christie, ready to do it all again. It's a great opportunity for us being here today. For Teenage Cancer Trust have the support from Russell. All of the funds for Teenage Cancer Trust is from amazing people out there who are donating. And without support from people like Russell, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. So actually, we work hand in hand, and that's the benefit of the opportunity. Like
So even if you can't make it to the concert, which is fine, but even if you can't make it to the concert, maybe tell them where they can donate anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So teenagecancertrust.org, you'll be able to donate. Please donate anything you can, because it really does make a massive difference to us.
It's been lovely having you all here, and especially Hamish, Sarah. Been lovely to see you. Dexter's gone. I noticed he's disappeared. But,
I reckon that was your singing.
he ran off with the singing.
It'll be raining outside.
Been lovely to see you, and
Take
good luck
care.
with everything, Hamish.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Hamish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And Russell will be performing his greatest hits and deafening everyone around him as well.
In a good way.
In a good way at this charity concert at the Bridgewater Hall in Manchester next Wednesday.
Headlines coming up in a moment.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a run.
I saw never call them that women who manufacture toys who don't manufacture stars. I was a Hollywood.
You sure?
Everybody suggests I'm not a real person, but I am. Talent is the whole thing.
Hollywood Women Take Over. Thursday nights on BBC4 and iPlayer. This Is My House is back.
Welcome to my house.
So look for the clues.
That relationship there was cold.
Trust your instincts.
Lindsay, too, you're almost more Lindsay than I am. Because I am Lindsay.
And try to spot who's telling the truth.
I am so indecisive.
Who's the real homeowner and who's just faking.
Whether the light, that's how to do it.
A brand new series of This Is My House starts tomorrow at 8:30 on BBC One and iPlayer.
Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Munchetti.
Our headlines today: £100 for a tank of petrol as prices keep rising. Today's the day the cost of filling up a typical family car is expected to reach an unprecedented high.
I suspect it's only going to get worse. So I think the government should look very hard at how they're going to help the ordinary person get by on a week-to-week basis.
So how much higher could prices go? I also have some advice on what you can do to try and make your fuel go the extra mile.
A change in the law to stop people under the age of 21 from buying cigarettes in England is set to be recommended today.
Help for people on low incomes to get onto the housing ladder, as benefit payments will be included to meet the cost of a mortgage.
Good morning. Money over morals at the tournament threatening to tear men's golf apart. That's the accusation aimed at the players teeing off today in the controversial Saudi Arabia-funded breakaway series that offers players huge amounts of money.
Good morning. It's a cloudy start across some northern and western parts of the country, with some rain sweeping in from the southwest. Further east, we've got some sunshine, but the cloud will build for you through the course of the day, and the wind is going to strengthen through the Irish Sea and areas adjacent to the English Channel. I'll have all the details later in the programme.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 9th of June. The cost
Good
of
morning.
filling an average family car with petrol is predicted to reach £100 today. Fuel prices continue to rise.
The price of unleaded saw its biggest daily increase in 17 years yesterday, largely due to the war in Ukraine. Our business correspondent Ben Boulos has more.
It just doesn't seem to stop going up.
On the road with taxi driver Neil.
It was 179 yesterday, and it's now 191 this morning.
He relies on fuel for his business, but price rises are having a big impact.
Well, we're having to put prices up, and customers don't particularly like it. They like to know their regular journey. They do it regularly. They want to know what the price is, and we're saying, well, the price is going up, and they're saying, well, what's it going to be? But what is it going to be? If fuel continues to increase, it's going to have to go up and up and up.
The average cost for a litre of petrol is now more than £1.80. That means filling the tank of an average family petrol car will set you back more than £99. Experts think it could hit £100 as soon as today. Diesel prices are at a record high too, costing an average £1.86 per litre, or £102 for a full 55-litre tank.
You're going to see £2 become a common sight on lots of forecourts, particularly smaller forecourts and of course on the motorway. This isn't a good time, and if oil stays higher, the prices could definitely rise.
At one petrol station in Lincolnshire, the price of unleaded has already reached more than £2 a litre.
Would you like to see it?
No, thank you.
And this petrol station boss in Gainsborough says he has no choice but to keep putting prices up.
I do face customers every day, and the price is going up pretty much every week now. Okay, and it's affecting people's life and livelihoods.
It's just costing us more and more to get to work, and all the prices are going up due to the fuel increases. It's disgusting.
I suspect it's only going to get worse. So I think the government should look very hard at how they're going to help the ordinary person get by on a week-to-week basis.
It's ridiculous. Is there the polite way I can put it?
It seems expensive, but I don't think about it too much.
What is it? Really, but I mean, I've got to drive and I've got to go to work, so there's nothing I can do really.
I'm not even going to be using this because I've gone and bought a push bike to get to work on. So all these things are in knock-on effects and stuff like that. But I can't see it being a quick fix, I'm afraid.
In March, the government cut fuel duty by 5p per litre. But continued price hikes mean the impact has long been cancelled out. For now, the verdict is that prices will go up even more before there's any hope they'll come down. Ben Boulos, BBC News.
A major report on smoking is expected to recommend raising the minimum age for the sale of cigarettes in England today. It's currently set at 18, but could rise to 21.
It's part of a series of measures to help the government achieve its ambition for England to become smoke-free by 2030. Here's more from our health correspondent, Jim Reid.
Smoke-free by 2030. That's the government's plan for England. This independent report, to be published later today, was commissioned to help ministers hit that target. It's thought there will be a
NHS will just section everybody.
On the profits of big tobacco companies. There
NHS is dangerous.
Ideas to promote vaping as an alternative to smoking. The most eye-catching proposal, though, is likely to be an increase in the age limit to buy cigarettes from 18 years old today.
I think it will be obviously preventative for longer term smoking. So I can see positives because obviously I'm still smoking and I started at that age.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea too, because it isn't a very nice habit. I wish I'd never started.
If they're planning to raise the age to 21, I don't necessarily think that's going to have a huge impact on preventing younger people from smoking.
I really don't think it will make any difference to the kids. If they're going to smoke, they're going to smoke. And let's hope it's just something they go through and, come out the other end.
One option being considered is a version of the system now being planned in New Zealand. It could mean the smoking age rising every year. So today's generation of children and young people may never be allowed to legally buy tobacco.
Just by increasing the age of sale, we could reduce the number of 18, 19 and 20-year-olds starting to smoke by about 30%. And this is very much an addiction of youth. The vast majority of smokers start smoking before the age of 21. And if we can stop them starting, that's a major step forward, because for every child who starts smoking, who smokes one cigarette, 2/3 of them will go on to become addicted smokers.
These are proposals, and in England there will have to be a consultation before any change in the law. Other nations will make their own decisions, though Wales and Northern Ireland have already said they'll work closely with the Westminster government over what could be a new legal age for smoking. Jim Reid, BBC News.
People on lower incomes will be able to use their housing benefit payments to apply for a mortgage when buying a home under new plans announced today.
Now, the Prime Minister will give details during a major speech in Lancashire. He's trying to improve support amongst his own MPs, of course, following Monday's confidence vote.
Let's speak to our political correspondent, Nick Early, who's in Blackpool this morning. Nick, it looks very bright and actually rather beautiful where you are today. So let's talk about this housing ladder issue, this is basically trying to get more people able to buy their homes. Talk us through what they're saying.
Yeah, morning, Charlie. It's absolutely lovely here this morning. The Prime Minister will be in Lancashire later to talk about his plans on housing. And there are a couple of things that we know about this morning, although some of the details are still a bit sketchy. So there's the one you talked about in the introduction there, this idea that people who get housing benefits could use those benefits not to pay their landlord rent, but to pay off a mortgage. You can't do that at the moment. That's something the government wants to change. It also is exploring the idea that you could use any money you get in benefits towards applying for a mortgage as well. Although, again, I'm not totally sure how that's going to work, and there's some more details that still need to be figured out by the government. The second idea that we're going to hear about today is extending the right to buy scheme to people who live in housing association homes in England. You remember, it was a massive deal when Margaret Thatcher did that for council homes in the 80s. They're now going to, the government says, extend that to many people living in housing association homes. Now, if you follow politics, you might have heard that idea before. It was in the Tory manifesto in 2015. It's been talked about a few times since. The chances are we're going to get some more pilots at the moment because there doesn't seem to be any new money to replace that housing stock. So the government is going to face big questions today about how exactly it's going to deliver all this. The idea, though, is to get more people buying more homes, and that would help, the government says, with their levelling up plans.
Nick, let's talk for a moment about Boris Johnson himself, the Prime Minister, and it has been a tricky week. We're coming towards the end of. So all the words I've written down here start with rejig, reboot, re-energize. What do you think he's trying to achieve as we reach the end of this week?
The one I heard from Downing Street yesterday was reset, to try and get back on the front foot, to persuade us all that he's got ideas, that he's not been sidetracked by the psychodrama about his leadership, and that he's going to deliver before the next general election. There's an interesting thing, though, that because there are some questions about how exactly these policies are going to be implemented, I think some Tories might be a bit nervous that we're hearing big promises again today without necessarily the specifics of how they're going to be delivered. The Prime Minister is also going to talk about the other big thing we've been chatting about on breakfast this morning, the cost of living and how you help people with rising bills. He's going to say that it's not going to be a quick fix. And there will be some questions about whether the government's going to do more on the cost of living in the next few weeks, what exactly its strategy for growing the economy that it keeps talking about is going to be. So I think there's a lot of questions for the Prime Minister today. He'll be hoping, though, that those questions are about his policies rather than the man himself.
Thanks very much.
Thousands of customers were provided an unacceptable service following Storm Arwen, according to the energy regulator Ofgem. 4,000 households were left without power for more than a week in the aftermath of the storm last November. 3 network providers will now need to pay an extra £10.3 million in redress payments to the affected communities on top of the £30 million they've already paid.
But the fact of the matter is the network companies were not ready for this. There are lots of things that they need to do to improve the resilience of the network, to make sure that people are restored quickly, and to make sure principally that people are even communicated to around what's going to happen to them. So this report sets out clear actions with clear deadlines and says to the network companies, you need to pay back £44 million to those customers and the communities that suffered as a result of those actions.
Ukraine's president says the fate of the east of the country now hinges on one city, Severodonetsk, which is coming under heavy Russian fire. Ukrainian soldiers are low on equipment and have been pushed to the outskirts of the region. But President Zelensky says his troops were inflicting major losses on enemy forces.
6 people have been interviewed in Brazil as police investigate the disappearance of a British journalist and an Indigenous expert in the Amazon. Efforts to find Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira have been stepped up after authorities were criticised for their initial slow response. The men have been missing since Sunday. Police say 250 people are taking part in the search and rescue operation.
2 people are still missing after a boat capsized on a lake in Devon yesterday. 4 other people were on board. who were rescued. 2 were taken to hospital. Rodford Lake remains closed while a large-scale search and rescue operation continues.
So now it's just coming up to 8:15. It means it's time to talk to Carol and find out what's happening with the weather this morning. Oh, I quite like the look of those temperatures, Carol. You're not bad either.
There you go.
Good morning.
Took me by surprise there. Good morning, everybody. It's, as Nagi said, the temperatures are rising quite nicely now. Outside, it's between 11 and 16 degrees. What we've got are some clear skies across the north of Scotland, the central swathe of the country seeing some clear skies. But for the rest of us, there is some cloud around. And you can see the cloud extending from the Outer Hebrides, Isle of Skye, through the central lowlands, all the way down towards northeast England. That's yesterday's weather front, still producing 1 or 2 showers. Then we run into the sunnier swathe of the country before we move back into all this cloud and rain, which is a new weather front coming our way. And as it advances through southwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland, on its leading edge, we could see some heavy bursts. But generally speaking, this rain will be light. But ahead of it, the clouds are going to continue to build. So if it's sunny where you are at the moment, likely to be cloudy by the end of the afternoon. The east hanging onto the sunniest skies for the longest. The other thing that's happening today is the breeze is going to pick up in the Irish Sea and also through the English Channel. Now, through this evening and overnight, our weather front continues to push steadily eastwards and northwards, taking its cloud and murk with it. It will linger across the far southeast. There'll be some hill and some coastal mist and fog, and there'll be some clear skies as well. And if anything, the wind's going to pick up across the far northwest of Scotland. In fact, tomorrow we're looking at quite rough seas out towards the west. It'll be windy here. There'll be some showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland, some of those heavy and thundery. Further south, there'll be a lot of dry weather. When we lose the dregs of the weather front, that might bring some cloud back in across parts of the southeast. Can I get in, Charlie?
Carol, thanks very much.
Thanks, Carol.
Pleasure.
It's 16 minutes past 8, the rising cost of living. So it means that some people are being forced to skip meals or cut back, even taking vital medication.
Now, leading healthcare organisations are warning that patients are making choices that save them money but pose a serious risk to their well-being. Our health correspondent, Dominic Hughes, has more.
I'm just sick of having to make choices, and they have to be the right choices. If not, it's my health that's going to be affected at the end of the line, and I don't want to be any more poorly.
Laura has been battling kidney disease since she was 7 and has already had 2 kidney transplants. Now she needs another.
Yeah, so running the cost of the dialysis machine, it's constantly filtering the water, and that water just gets wasted.
She depends on dialysis, where a machine carries out the filtering processes that would normally be done by the kidneys.
Without dialysis, I think they'd say they live if you live past 7 days, then that's how serious it is.
Laura was having dialysis at home, but the machine uses so much electricity and water, the mounting bills have forced her to switch to a local hospital.
I'd say that it's the straw that broke the camel's back, really, with the cost of running the dialysis machine, the water it uses, the electric. It was adding to my anxiety, like, how am I going to pay to do this treatment every month? It's a very worrying time.
That's a lot to cope with.
Yeah, my little dog helps a lot with that. It's hard, but I've been ill a long time now, so I just try and live life as best I can.
And now GPs and frontline healthcare workers are warning rising costs are starting to have a much broader impact.
Those cost of living impacts are only just filtering through. The people who are on the lowest income are feeling them now.
At Grey Road Surgery in North Liverpool, GP Dr. Janet Bliss and her team have for years seen how poverty can badly affect health.
Living in that kind of chronic stress does really bad things to your blood pressure and to your metabolism, and can lead to illnesses like diabetes.
Now the rising costs are making a bad situation worse.
We're seeing people limiting the amount of meals they will eat in a week, consciously planning to miss meals. We're seeing people deciding to not to collect medications, not to pay prescription items. We're seeing the impact on transport costs, and also things like data for your phone, so in order to access vital services that will support their health.
The rising costs of basic foods, fruit and veg, bread, cereals and pasta, is an obvious cause for concern. So in Darlington, in the northeast of England, an innovative mobile food club is helping people continue to eat healthily. For just £7.50, you can get £35 worth of fresh fruit, veg and meat, essential for someone like Marge, for whom this project offers a real lifeline.
There we go. So free for you today. You'll just hand that to the van.
At the moment, I have to count every penny to make sure I got for the nappies, I got for the cream, I got for the wipes. And now, for example, he's 5 months, so soon I'll be weaning him off the food. So this saving will allow me buy him some better veg, better fruit, so he can actually have a good start in life. Without it, I don't know what I would do. In one of the wealthiest countries in the 21st century, I have to worry about not feeding my babies, which is, I would say, really, really sad.
And Steve, who lost his job during the pandemic, now trying to give his 3 growing teenage sons a decent diet while struggling to pay the bills.
We're no different to any other family in the UK. So things like this, and certainly from a health point of view, they are packed with fruit and veg, stuff that we wouldn't normally try. And it gives us that impetus as well to try things different, new, that we wouldn't normally buy as well. So yeah, it's difficult and it's going to get worse and it's going to get harder. And we're at the bottom end of the sort of chain. And unfortunately, it's going to get to the point, I'm sure it's sometimes in October, even us, that we're going to have to make decisions of meals and things that we wouldn't have had to have made before.
Schemes like this offer people the chance to stay healthy even as budgets are squeezed. And no one believes the pressures on family finances will ease anytime soon. And that has implications for our health too. Dominic Hughes, BBC News.
So let's talk through some of the things you heard a moment ago there. One of our regular GPs, Dr. Helen Wall, is with us. Morning, Helen.
Morning.
And with her is Hope Hevingham, who manages a community centre supporting local people with a rising cost of living. That's in Telford. Good morning, Hope.
Morning.
What an appropriate name for someone who helps people with trying to deal with things. Tell us about you're going to be in your centre this morning, aren't you? A little bit later on.
Yeah, I'll be going there after this.
Go on. I'm sure there's not an average day, but you start the day. What happens next in terms of the challenges you're having to help people with?
So the centre on a day-to-day basis does a variety of things. Usually first thing in the morning, what we do is we have a community fridge which has surplus stock from supermarkets, and we fill that up. It's free to the community to use. People can take as many items as they want. We have a cookbook next to the community fridge that teaches people how to cook using the fruit and vegetables that are in there. It's a big part of our community fridge. It was an initiative started by Brookside Big Local. They are a national lottery funded community group. And we support the delivery.
Well,
of
it's
that.
such a simple and obvious idea, isn't it, that food should be used. Now, the report particularly we're looking at today is about skipping meals and their general health and well-being being affected. What do you see?
So we've seen that our community fridge is being more used now. When the deliveries come in, we've got a queue of people waiting to come in and take their food, because one of the costs people cut is their food bill. We also distribute food parcels from Telford Crisis Support, and we help with the referrals on that side. We've seen more food parcels through that. We give out breakfast parcels to children on free school meals. They are on the increase. And in the school holidays, Telford and Wrekin Council fund a happy, active, healthy
I
holiday
took
programme
children
for
to
children on free
circuses.
school meals.
Yeah.
And we've seen more children being referred onto that as well.
Helen, hearing Hope, all the work that's being done, and
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
hearing as well is that there is more demand. And with more demand comes, and we've spoken about this before, the difficulty, just first of all, of asking for help, then going to community centre that Hope works in. That's hard. And then having to go more. And that emanates the stress, doesn't it? And so what are you witnessing now?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Naga, really. I mean, a basic human need is dignity, isn't it? And what we're seeing is people who are genuinely embarrassed to come forward for help. So the work that Hope is doing, and we've got similar schemes going on in Bolton where I work,
is just really great because it's just sort of normalising it. And I know there's
She's
a lot of
nice.
criticism, we shouldn't have to normalise this, that people are having to rely on charities and support, but unfortunately that is where we are at.
Hello.
I'm seeing a massive number of people struggling with their mental health because of this.
And the problem then that we're also hearing is that when help is available, where help is available, and that's an if in itself, is that people are cutting back even further. So skipping meals, maybe even paring back medicine that's prescribed, that's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I've got patients who tell me they've disconnected their cooker, they're sitting in the dark at night, they're living on toast because the toaster doesn't use much energy. So it's not even, we're not even at the point now where people can't buy the food. We're at the point where they don't want to cook the food because their energy bills are so high. So, you know, it is a massive problem, and I'm really worried, as many people are, that this is just going to get worse because at the minute we're in summer, aren't we? And, you know, heating isn't a mega issue, but once winter hits, the cost of fuel goes up again. What's going to happen? We're going to be in a real crisis.
Hope, I dare say, given the nature of your work, you probably get to know people fairly well in a funny kind of way as they come in, you know, one day after another. Obviously, no names here, but are there individuals who you think illustrate what we're talking about here, who you've seen, who've talked to you about the struggles they're having?
Yeah, I can think of a lot of families.
Like what? What kind of situation are we talking about?
I mean, it varies. Brookside's a very diverse little area. We've got families that are struggling, you know, two-parent, both working households with 4 or 5 children in. They're struggling. I've got people, single occupancy flats, you know, that are struggling. It's so varied, the type of people that are being affected by this.
And do you see evidence of what we were talking about, Helen was talking about there, of people skipping meals, or people saying, you know, I need to have stuff for the kids maybe, and you're thinking, well, there isn't enough, you're not taking enough food away.
Yeah, definitely. We try and support them through everything. You know, if they are scared of putting their oven on to cook because it's using too much gas and electric, we'll help them get a gas and electric voucher from Telford and Wrekin Council's discretionary team. We can make sure that their food parcels have got stuff like pot noodles in that they can use a kettle on, which although is nutritionally not the best, it's something, and something's always better than nothing. So we've got workaround methods, but obviously the service is stretched.
Helen, when it comes to medicine and when it comes to people who are thinking, I can't pay the prescription charge, and it's like Hope said, you've got families both working, you know, 2-parent families, both working, felt that they were comfortable, and it's just slipped just into the unmanageable. Is there any help on offer when it comes to prescription charges, or, you know, being able to have conversations with their GPs?
So many patients will ask for a longer prescription, and, you know, our guidance is that we don't prescribe, the guidance is 2 months, and we don't really prescribe more than 3 months because we have to be safe with prescriptions. You know, we can't just give people a year's worth of prescriptions without monitoring those drugs. So it is really tricky because we've got to always balance that with safety. You can get an annual prepayment certificate, so you pay a one-off charge for the year, but again, that's a big outlay for families who are struggling to, you know, to put food on the table. But it's having effects on health now, not just mental health, but physical health as well. Now, even if we just talk about people being stressed, we know that people who are stressed have high cortisol levels. If you have high cortisol levels, you don't fight infection, you acquire infection better, you don't heal properly. So even, you know, removing the anxiety, the depression, the severe mental health problems that are coming from this, even at that lower level, it's going to have a knock-on effect on physical health. And in the longer term, I suspect we're going to see more obesity, more diabetes, more cardiovascular problems, because we know that food that is nutritionally not the best is cheaper to buy.
Good talking to you. I know it's only a tiny team, isn't it? It's you and one other, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's me and our admin assistant Lydia and a team of volunteers.
Well, good luck to you. I know you're back at work today, so good luck to you, and thank you for
so
all the work
much.
you're doing. Lovely to see you this morning.
Thank you.
Morning Live, of course, follows us on BBC One this morning. Sam and Gethin in the hot seats and going to tell us what's in store. Morning.
Charlie Naga. Good morning. Coming up on Morning Live on this Thursday, they are a secure and easy way of accessing your cash on the go. It's thought that in the next year, 78% of us will be using mobile banking apps to look after our money.
But it's not just us they're proving to be popular with. Fraudsters love them too. In fact, banks are warning users about a particular scam that's doing the rounds right now.
That's right, I'll be telling you how the scammers are targeting you and your banking app, potentially costing you thousands of pounds. But the good news is, when you know the trick, it's easy to avoid.
While Ralph has his eye on your cash, Dr. Oscar is looking after your health. More than 14 million adults in the UK have high blood pressure, and as many as 5 million are undiagnosed.
Yes, that's right. If left untreated, it can lead to serious health problems. So I'll show you how a home blood pressure monitor could help. Plus, I'll explain how lowering the salt in your diet could bring your numbers down in just a few weeks.
Auntie Birtwistle isn't cooking with salt, but she is using pepper on her strawberries. She'll be making a no-bake strawberry tart, and because they're in season at the moment, it'll only cost you a few pounds to treat the family.
And she'll obviously have some tips on how to clean the strawberries, obviously, because she's Nancy. And we've got a TV treat as actors Christopher Eccleston and Poppy Lee Fryer join us. They'll be telling us about their one-off drama, My Name is Leon, and why it was made so special thanks to Sir Lenny Henry.
And there's no drama on the dance floor when Jeanette's in charge. There she is. She's working out all. Yeah, she'll be working out our lower body and Strictly Fitness today to Ora and Joanne's feel-good routine. Lots of kicks. Wow, too flexible that. I won't be able to do that.
Jumping chair as well. Perfect.
We'll see you at 9:15.
Sam Gethin, thanks very much. Enjoy the show.
Time now to get the news, travel and weather where you are.
Hello, I'm David Allard with the headlines in the South. The Crown Prosecution Service has dropped a case against the former Police and Crime Commissioner for Wiltshire, Jonathan Seed, due to a lack of evidence. The Conservative candidate had been facing trial after being charged with making a false declaration when he became an election candidate. Mr. Seed won the election but then withdrew after a historical driving conviction came to light. A company which was highly criticised for how it ran patient transport services in Sussex has finally been wound up with more than £9.5 million of debts. Co-Performer took over transporting patients to and from hospital appointments in 2016, but the contract was terminated after 7 months. The NHS in Sussex took legal action to recover some money from a parent company, but has been left out of pocket, as have some private ambulance contractors. Rail accident investigators are studying a near miss at a level crossing in Hampshire. A Great Western driver reported a large group of pedestrians using the crossing at Farnborough North Station in May. He sounded the horn and applied emergency brakes from 70 miles an hour. The track wasn't clear until less than 5 seconds before the train passed. Organisers of the Live at Lydiard Festival in Swindon this August say they've been forced to cancel the event. In a statement on social media, they say the decision is down to factors beyond their control. Tickets will be automatically refunded. It's hoped the festival will return next year. More than 250 life-sized silhouettes made by an Oxfordshire artist are going on display, depicting military personnel and civilians killed in the Falklands conflict. The installation in Nottinghamshire coincides with the 40th anniversary of the island's liberation. Dan Barton from the Standing with Giants project says it's important to honour the sacrifices of others.
I used to watch the conflict unfold on the news, and it just planted a seed in me, and I felt a connection. And since I've been doing these tributes, it just is something I wanted to do, a tribute to those who lost their lives liberating the Falkland Islands, a conflict in our living memory.
OK, let's get the weather now with Dan.
Hello, good morning. It's been a bright start for most, but the early sunshine will be replaced by cloud building in from the west today, bringing with it some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle at times. Some low cloud, a bit of mistiness possible. Should see 1 or 2 breaks in the cloud, alone for the odd brighter spell, but generally quite grey, overcast. Feeling quite humid too, with temperatures today between around 17 and 19 degrees. Fairly breezy, particularly around the coast and for the Isle of Wight, and that cloud lingers into tonight. Still a bit of murkiness, some drizzle in the air, and it's definitely quite humid. Temperatures holding in the teens for most tonight. We'll see the cloud breaking up more through tomorrow morning, though. Some bright and sunny spells developing more widely. Dry day for most, just a small chance of an isolated shower turning up, and temperatures away from the coast getting into the low 20s. Have a good day.
In Surrey, the M25 has 10 miles of queuing traffic clockwise from junctions 10 to 11 after an accident. That's it. Bye for now.
Hello, you're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Naga Munchetti.
Time now is 8:34. So you will know this already. Petrol prices already at a record high. They're expected to rise even further today. It's funny, isn't it, Ben? Because we kind of, everyone knows the story. The petrol prices are rising a lot. Today, there's a kind of a marker which sort of sets a precedent, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, you could be forgiven for thinking, hang on, you've said this before, it's at a record high. That's because day after day, we're seeing new record highs being set, and people are really feeling that. The marker that you're talking about, potentially, the cost of filling up the average family car could hit £100 for a full tank of petrol. Let me explain the details of why that is. Good morning to you from the BBC Breakfast petrol station, virtual petrol station. Filling up this morning will cost you on average more than £1.80 per litre. That is a leap of more than 2 pence a litre since Monday, and the biggest single price jump in 17 years. It means the cost of filling an average petrol car, say a Ford Focus with a 55-litre tank, is now more than £99. And the RAC thinks the cost could reach an eye-watering £100 as soon as today. Diesel prices are also at a record high, costing an average £1.86 per litre. The cost of filling an average family diesel car is already at more than £102. So, is there anything that we can do to save a bit of money on fuel? Let's speak to Neil Gregg, a driving expert at I Am Road Smart. So what can we do then, Neil?
Well, there's lots of things you can do. The research is quite clear that if you apply eco-driving techniques, you can make good long-term savings, real money, which will allow you to spend that money on other things. But there's a couple of different things. There's things you can do to the vehicle, such as removing excess weight, taking off roof racks, taking weight out of the boot, making sure your tires are properly inflated and the vehicle is well maintained. But the main savings tend to come from you as a driver, your driver behavior. If you can anticipate and plan more, then you can make substantial savings on your fuel bill.
How much difference does that actually make, though? I mean, if the cost of filling a tank is going to be £100 and this saves, a penny or two on each journey, how much difference does it actually make?
Well, the really big wins are air conditioning. It's estimated that on a hot day, air conditioning can add 25% to your fuel consumption. So, minimize your use of air conditioning if you don't have to use it. And the second big one is speed. If you can stick to the speed limits, at 75 miles an hour, you use 20% more fuel than you do at 60 miles per hour. So simply slowing down and sticking to the speed limits will give you an immediate benefit. You'll see an immediate gain there. But it's also things like anticipating the flow of traffic, not rushing up to the lights. The biggest enemies of good fuel consumption are heavy braking and heavy acceleration. So doing everything smoothly, anticipating the red light, the junction ahead, trying to coast up to the junction without actually stopping, because stopping and starting are going to be one of the major issues as well. And of course, if you can avoid peak hour driving with all its stopping and starting, accelerating in first gear, then that will also help you as well.
When you talk about checking the tyre pressures, making sure they're at the optimum level, how often realistically should people be doing that? I mean, you can't do it every journey, can you?
Well, I think you need to start thinking about driving with fuel with these sort of prices, almost like an Olympic sports. It's lots of these little wins, these little gains cumulative together will actually get you some extra real savings. So looking after your car, checking the tyre pressures, you should be doing that weekly anyway, but also making sure you're not carrying excess weight in the boot, for example. Those golf clubs don't need to be in there if you're not going to the golf club. Ultimately, if you can cut out short journeys as well, because for the first 4 miles when your car is still cold, that's when it uses most fuel. So cutting out short journeys, avoiding peak times, the stop-start, and sticking to the speed limits. These are things you can start doing today to actually save some money.
And then when people are looking at ways to save money, because the cost of living pressures are being felt in so many aspects of life, the temptation might be that if your car is due for a service, but it seems to be running fine, you could leave it a bit longer, save a bit of money in that way. Are there things that people should be checking that they can easily and safely do themselves if they are putting off the car service, maybe by a month or two?
It's a difficult one. Modern cars require a lot of modern servicing techniques. A lot of modern cars the average person can't even get access to service things. So we would always recommend you use a professional service agent when you're servicing your car. You don't need to change things here. A well-maintained car serviced once a year to the manufacturer's guidelines is going to be as efficient as it can be. So you don't really need to worry too much about that. We would certainly not recommend any savings such as trying to cut back on servicing, looking to buy cheaper tyres, for example. These are the things. People will be looking to make these savings, but ultimately they can be a false economy because they cost you more in the long run.
Are you finding, you run an organisation, or you're part of an organisation that does driver training, advanced driver training. Are you finding that perhaps people are being put off driving because of this and they're looking for alternatives because it's simply unaffordable at the moment?
At the moment, the Department of Transport are still reporting that car use is much the same as you'd expect it to be compared to previous years. It's still bouncing back from COVID. So people are still using their cars because often they have no alternative. It's a good time to start researching those alternatives. Do you have bus services, train services? Can you walk or cycle in your local area? Things you might not have considered before. So certainly look at that wider active travel options as well. No doubt about that. But the government actually stopped subsidising fleet eco-driving training a short while ago. And that's clearly been a bit of a mistake because fleets can no longer get money to train their drivers in eco-driving techniques. We'd like to see that reinstated. But certainly, if you come to the Institute of Advanced Motorists, all our courses, that eco-driving theme runs through all our courses, and we will save you money in the long run.
Okay, well, you've given plenty of advice. Neil, thank you very much. Neil Gregg from I Am Road Smart there. And Charlie Nagger, you know, we're talking about the air conditioning and the impact that makes. And my air conditioning in the car broke a while ago. Never got it fixed. Still have the benefit of it. Just open the windows. Natural air conditioning. There you go. And it's free.
Yeah, but when it's cold.
Well, you don't want air conditioning when it's cold, do you?
Well, you can have air conditioning and it can be hot.
I'll put the heater on, but it's the aircon that's the real drain, isn't it?
I'm going to explain the difference between heating and aircon to you later. And that's why your air conditioning is broken. See you later.
Thanks, Naka.
I think he's right, just open the windows.
Not in the winter.
I've got the door
You
open.
don't need the air conditioning. That's absolutely right.
But the air conditioning can be hotter as well as colder.
Yeah, but that's what's costing you fuel, Mike.
I didn't
when
say
you
I
open
use
the
it.
windows, doesn't that create
And now I'm going to roll a joint.
Yes, exactly. So
Get
you
more
become
drag,
fuel inefficient.
so less.
You've got to make a balance. See what he started? He's just run out of the studio. He doesn't want to be part of this anymore. I tell you what, there are some people who would have loved to run out of media studios when in the golfing world.
There's a rule to buy, isn't there?
It's really interesting in golf because usually, whenever you see the media conferences, they all seem quite chummy, don't they? It's all very gentle.
More than other
and-
sports, you'd say.
Exactly, and you kind of, it's all, yo, haven't you played well? Wasn't it delightful? And now there comes a bit of politics into
We've got
it.
this
over
controversial
live
tournament,
tournament,
the Live
yeah.
Series, 8 tournaments forming this league. It's a breakaway, so it could risk participation in the future in the PGA, Ryder Cups, the main tours. And it's Saudi Arabian funded. That's where the controversy comes, to do with human rights, of course, and their record there. I think why it's so prickly in this press conference, which you're going to get a taste of, I think journalists and pundits have really taken aback, surprised how many big names have agreed, potentially motivated by money, to sign up to this new series. I think that's what's causing some of the problem.
Well, you say potentially,
The
but I
big
think a
names
lot
as
of
well.
journalists have just said, we think it is because of the money.
Yeah, money, morals, motivation, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Yeah, good morning. Not long to wait now until the face of men's golf is changed forever. The most controversial and most lucrative tournament in the sport's history will get underway in just a few hours' time. Major champions like Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, and Dustin Johnson are getting paid mind-boggling amounts to just appear, and then will play the £3.2 million top prize at the Centurion Club. That's where it all begins in Hertfordshire this afternoon. But all competitors have faced questions about the ethics of a series funded by Saudi Arabian money, with the country's human rights record called to question.
If Vladimir Putin had a tournament, would you play there?
I'm not even going to comment on speculation.
Just in a generality, is there any way you wouldn't play on a moral basis? If the money was right, is there any way you wouldn't play?
I don't need to answer that question.
Sorry?
I don't need to answer that question.
Lee, do you want to answer it? Would you play outside South Africa, for example?
You're just asking us to answer hypothetical questions.
Oh my God!
Wow, yeah, you can cut the atmosphere with a knife there, couldn't you? Despite the threat of being ruled out of events on the US-based PGA Tour and the Ryder Cup, is gathering momentum.
Woohoo! Yeah. New caps,
But Roy McIlroy won't be one of them. He's chosen to stay on the PGA Tour and insists he's motivated by more than money.
I want to play on the PGA Tour against the best players in the world, and
I want to play
I
some
think for
music.
me,
Yeah, I do, honestly.
a few people yesterday.
I know what I'm going to play.
The
Let's see now
comments
what we've
was
got here.
any decision that you make in your life that is purely for money usually doesn't end up going the right way.
Sit yourself down, girl. Don't keep on running.
He is the greatest. He's fantastic. Corey be mine. Corey be mine.
Yeah.